I was pleased with the fact that we won. I was pleased with the fact that we had good effort. I thought the offense did a reasonable job in terms of being able to move the ball and did a reasonable job with regard to protecting it. I thought special teams were excellent. I thought the defense was kind of the tale of two halves. They could not have been better in the first half. But in the first half, we also had some problems with their screens. So they ran two, if you remember. They ran kind of the tunnel screen to the wide receiver. They ran a little slip screen to the back. They hurt us with both of those. We didn't worry too much about that going into the game. We knew we needed to put real pressure on the passer. And we were aggressive with that. And being aggressive with that, and some of those, too, where they hurt us were blitzes. But we needed to do a better job of adjusting more quickly in the third quarter. We didn't get a chance to do that. We eventually did, but it was more on the late side. So that was something certainly we spent a lot of time addressing, at our meetings on Sunday and Monday. Going forward, when we think about Presbyterian, number one, I think the world of Harold Nichols. I think he does a great job. I think kids that play for him in his program have experience, I think, that a lot of other places may not have. He does care about his kids. They spend time in life after football as well, and I've got a lot of respect for him. If you think back to our game last year, it was a close game. That game could have gone either way, and at the end of the day, we wound up winning on a fake field goal. I felt they always played us tough from a defensive perspective. They play our offense tough. They have done that certainly in the past. And I have no doubt they're going to continue to do that in the future, especially with the situation we happen to be in. When you look at their defense, they'll have four guys down. They'll run three linebackers. They'll try to mix up their coverages like anybody else would. They'll do a good job. They will work hard, I'm sure, to try to take away our run. They will work hard to try to give us some disguises. I think while they normally probably don't want to blitz all the time, I think they might come after us perhaps a little bit more than what they normally would have done in the past. From a defensive perspective, from their defensive perspective, no, I'm sorry, that's their defense. From their offensive perspective, when you look at us, they have a good screen game. So if you have a good screen game and you watch what happened to us last week, they've been working on the screen game all week, and they probably would have changed a couple of things, maybe to take advantage of some of the things they saw Central Connecticut do against us. So we know we have to be ready for that. And again, we've got to make sure that we go into a game, we've got all the contingency plans we need to be successful in that game. So I'm confident we will be prepared for their screen game. They don't run the ball particularly well, but they run it better than what Central Connecticut did. They throw the ball pretty well, but not as good as Central Connecticut did. But they do throw the ball. They do throw the ball pretty well. I think they've got a reasonable offensive line. I think they've got some reasonable receivers. One of them, I may be wrong on this, he's a small guy, number 5. I think he's really, really quick and somebody certainly we have to pay attention to. They are one of the best defenses in the country when it comes to, go back to the defense, one of the best defenses in the country when you look at what they do in terms of fourth down conversion and red zone stops. When you look at their special teams, they've always worked hard on those. They've always done a pretty good job on those. When you look at their punting team is one of the best in the country. Now, I know we think ours is good, but certainly they make a lot of noise there as well. It's homecoming at their place. They certainly saw we were vulnerable in the second half the other day. This is going to be a game that they think that they're going to be able to upset us. It's a big game for them. It's an important game for them. Keep in mind that 3 of the 5 games or so they lost. They lose 5 games or 4 games? 3 of the 5 games they lost. One was against Central Michigan. One was against Chattanooga, nationally ranked, and one was against, but not just nationally ranked, top 5 team, and Charleston Southern, top 10 team. So those are 3 pretty good teams that they lost to. They're better than what the record indicates. So we know that Harold's going to have his guys well prepared for us. We know it's going to be a battle. I think every game we play this year is going to be a battle. But our guys are going to be ready to go. We're going to go out there, and we're going to give it everything we've got.
Coach, what's the health status of the running backs this week?
Same as it was a week ago.
What are your thoughts about the way your team was able to manufacture so many yards on the ground in spite of the fact that you had your top two guys out.
Well, I think we do a good, well, number one, you can't forget about our offensive line. Now, by the way, I don't think our offensive line had this great day last week, but we've got a good offensive line. They're experienced guys that have done a good job over the span of the last couple of years. They've done a good job for us this season. So, number one, you got an experienced offensive line. Number two, when you look at our receivers are a pretty talented group, but they don't just catch the ball. I mean, we really do expect them to block, and that's a critical part of our success as well. So our receivers doing a good job of blocking, our offensive line doing a reasonable job of blocking, and then I think we've always talked about you adapt and adjust your game plan to the strengths that you've got. So as we become, as the running back situation becomes a little bit more scarce, again, we want to take advantage of the rest of the talent we have. So we've got guys that are good receivers that can run. So if you look at what we did, we probably ran outside at least as much as what we ran inside. And we had some pretty good success running outside, and that was because the receivers were blocking well, and we have guys that are talented guys. Now, we may not want to run those guys inside on power, the way we would have with Hop or with Osh, or the way we would with Kenny or Jermaine. But those guys can run. So we think we can throw to our receivers from the backfield, and we can use them as, in effect, an extra back to help us get some of the things done we need to do. So we can still protect the ball so we don't have bad turnovers. We can still do a decent job of moving the ball, and therefore maybe eat up a little bit more clock than we've done in the past. And we'll still score. But what we've got where we're better now is our defense is certainly better, although a little bit inconsistent, and our special teams. I don't know if everybody really understands the advantage our special teams give us. One of these days I want to actually show the stats to everybody that we really look at internally with regard to that. The average yardage our special teams give us versus the other team's special teams over the span of a game or a season. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on Jaime Martin? I know you had to take the red shirt off of him, so I assume he's going to see
So,
it.
first of all, I would not hesitate. We've got 5 games to go. If any of the victories for those 5 games are in the balance, I will take the red shirt off of anybody. And I think we talked about that a little bit here. Now, and sometimes my staff gets a little queasy on that, but that's not acceptable to me. So I think I shared with many of you, or the analogy that I've used is kind of the business world. If you're going to make, and you don't have to be a business expert to understand this, if you're going to invest in something for 1 year, you expect a certain type of return. But if you're going to invest in something for 5 years, you expect a greater return. Why? Because of the incremental risk of those extra 4 years. So for the typical football coach, which is the way they think, to automatically assume that you want to redshirt a guy means if we do that this year, that means we think, we have an idea that that's going to benefit us in 2020. That's ridiculous. Now, if we wouldn't put a kid in just for the sake of putting him in, if we could provide an extra year with him, if we have an extra year, if we can have an extra year for him later on. But if our guys can help us, I don't care if they're freshmen or not, again, with where we're in terms of guys being injured and banged up, we liked what Jermaine had been doing all along. So we wouldn't hesitate to use him or anybody else in that situation.
Probably a question I can answer myself, but I'll ask you. First 3 road games this year, you trailed at half. Obviously, that's something you want to change on Saturday.
Well, how would you answer it? Maybe you'll give me some insight. If I tell you what I think, then I kind of spoil us. How would you answer that?
Yes, I think we do.
Yes, I think we do. I think that's good. Now, I think the other thing, though, is, now, again, a coach doesn't want to be down. But I do think it says more about your team when you do come from behind and win than when you're just kind of controlling the game from the outset. So the games where we've won kind of going into the second half, remember, and offenses are so explosive and so many different things can happen. You can have a bad quarter and everything gets turned around for you, or you can have a great quarter and everything gets turned around for you. The one thing I expect from our guys, no matter what the score is at halftime, I expect them to go back out in the second half and give it 100% of the time. That's what I expect.
Is there more of a chance that Henderson will play this week than last week?
No,
So he's not going to play, or
he's not going to play.
he won't play?
He's over there, ask him, but he's not going to play. No. If he wants to play, he's not going to play.
How about, any other injuries? Chase or anybody else?
There's no changes, unless Mike's, we didn't get a new one. Gary Bradshaw, who's one of the guys, kind of, one of our receivers, who had a couple of really good runs for us. He's going to be out. He's going to be out, and I think right now the status for the other guys is still same to where it's been. Now, a couple of those guys could be potentially okay by Friday. I think no matter what, Hop will come back, but even if he thinks he's ready to come back, we're not going to let him do anything to kind of hurt the shoulder. So when he comes back, he'll be ready to come back.
How about Richie Sampson?
He's not ready. He's not going to be able to play. In 24 years, I have not dealt with anything like this, and I don't know anybody that's dealt with anything like this. So technically, if you go back to August, Tyler was on the 5th team. And if you look at, where Kenny would be third team. Then you lose certainly one of our best offensive linemen. You lose certainly one of our best defensive backs. And then kind of a handful of other guys. To lose that many people at one position is that would be a surprise. That'd be a surprise. But again, we try to do everything we can to protect our guys. We do a good job of making sure they eat well, they work out the way they need to. It's not just getting bigger and stronger faster. It's a matter of the better you take care of yourself, and the smarter you work out, the better you're going to prevent injury. So, and we don't hit much in practice. So there's a lot of things like that. Now, the guys have been getting hurt in games. The guys haven't been hurt in practice. So the reality is we try to do everything we can to have a positive impact on that. When something happens, we understand it happens, and then we got to adapt and adjust to it. Too many coaches, I think, just use it as an excuse to kind of moan and groan, but then they expect the other kid, the third-team kid, to do what the first-team kid can do. That's usually silly. So that's part of the reason why you see our offense doing so many different things.
How do you feel about the way, obviously you've had a lot of guys because of these injuries who've gotten more experience than they probably would have. How do you feel about the way that they've responded to the opportunities they've had?
I think our guys have done a great job of that. I really do. And that's going to, even if some of our guys come back later in the season, that's going to help us this season. If they're younger, that's going to help them and us next season. But I would expect that. We would expect that. So if you have a philosophy where it's 100% of the time, and you've got some of your guys going down, well, you got to help your brother. You got to help your teammate. But there's also an opportunity for you to step up and play and show what you've got. So there should be a philosophy like within the team that we've got a couple problems. We've got to do a better job of kind of banding together and step up to get the job done. And in that particular position, hey, now's my chance. Now I got an opportunity to go. Let me show what I can do. That's why everybody's got to work consistently throughout the span of the season, because you never know when you're going to get that opportunity.
Bruce, obviously a lot of injuries all across the field, but on offense in particular. Do you kind of feel yourself taking more of a leadership role with some of these younger guys who have had to step up their role a little bit?
Yeah, definitely have to take a leadership role. Sometimes when quarterbacks be down, that's who most of the guys look for as the leader. And right now, Keene doesn't have that type of experience. We do follow Keene, we go by his lead, but me being right now a healthy guy and being the oldest, I had to take that leadership role. Just do your job, throughout practice, work on your preparation so you can be ready for the game. Just most importantly, just do your job and everything will fall in place in the game.
But how much do you think about those records going into to any given game?
Anytime I see Mike, I start to think about it. But, not really so much during the game, mostly after the game. I may talk to my dad or something like that. It would be nice to have.
Shane, kind of defense scored 7 touchdowns this year. Kind of talk about the defense approach going into a game with so many returns y'all had this year.
As a defensive unit, we know we have to step up and we got to be on our best game every time we step on the field. We're not as strong as we were in the past on offense, and we have a couple guys down, and we know it's our job to step up. And every time we step on the field, Coach tells us, this is our game, this is our time. We need to make sure we do what we got to do.
What are y'all's thoughts on Presbyterian? Both of y'all can talk about that.
Presbyterian's always been the last 2 years good defensively. D-backs get after pretty well. I remember playing against number 20 and 18 from last year, you know, watching them on film. They definitely improved and got better. They're taller guys, you know, and they're going to play their scheme. They're going to be well coached and ready to go. I'm excited for Saturday.
Yeah, these guys are always a competitive team, and like Bruce said, we just got to play our scheme. Our goal is to be 1-0 this week. That's all it is. We got one game to focus on this week, and we're just gonna make sure we do that.
They're also on, I think, their third quarterback. Does that change the way you guys approach defense at all?
No. We know we gotta do what we gotta do. That's all there is to it. Every team we look at, we don't look at what person is up. Like, just, I don't know if other teams look at, we're down to our third or fourth quarterback, but we don't take that into account. We know we got to step up. We don't take anybody for granted, and we just got to play our ball.
Do you feel the defense is building any kind of momentum this season?
Big time.
Game after game?
Yeah. Defense is definitely building momentum. Like I talked to you guys before, I told you Scarce is a big competitor, and Richie, him being down, but Richie and Scarce talk all the time about who's going to have the most interceptions this year, and it turned into a touchdown argument this last game. Sadly, Richie went down, but we got another guy to step up and take his place, and we're all going to help him feel comfortable in that position.